Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to be talking about some of my favorite story/book moments of 2023 because last week I gave you my biggest what the fricks. This week I'm going to tell you some positivity. Also, in some of the books that I didn't like, there were still things that I liked about them or moments that I thought were funny or entertaining or just vibe-ish. So I'm going to give you some of that in this video, and but you'll also hear about some of the things that I did enjoy, which includes both books and video games, because on Tuesdays and Sunday nights we usually play video games together. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemwy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and the first Monday video of the month we read a couple of those together, or as many of those together as we can, because y'all are so super creative. It is one of my favorite videos to shoot just to see what you guys are doing. And the second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit your first chapter and the cover, it'll be read here on the channel at a random interval to hopefully help more readers find your work, because your audience is out there waiting to find you once you get it out there. Third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, judge me for my choices, you can get them anywhere that you like books, including the local library if you request them. So with that said, let's get into some of my favorite book moments of 2023. And the order of which these are in is just from the order in which I read them, the same as with the WTF video. If you watched that, it's just the order I went through reading them. The first entry is Night of the Mannequin by Stephen Graham Jones. This was the first loin read of the year, brought to you by the loin streamers, picking the books and voting for the books. So that's the Friday nights, by the way, if you want to join the book club. Friday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We read books, and sometimes we replace characters in the books with readers in the chat. So Night of the Mannequin was submitted by Ruth, and the ending of it was disappointing. I can't say that it was my favorite book. However, I did enjoy the movie theater scene at the beginning, and I thought the setting up of the mannequin in the front seat and the setup of having found the mannequin and the way that Sydney, the narrator, responded to the scenario and was talking about the prank. Like, I was very hopeful at the start of this book, having started this book, because of the humor and the character voice and the setting. It was more like as the story continued that it was harder, but this scene was memorable, and usually you do pretty well with creating setting when you're using a mannequin. The next memorable story moment of 2023 was actually in Shadow of the Conqueror by Shad Brooks, and that is when Dalen the Kool-Aid Man slammed through the wall going, "Oh yeah!" Then ripped off the guy's dick, tossed it out the window, tossed the dad out the window while saving the girl from being abused by her father, and then said, "Be happy that you're an orphan," and then just flew away. I don't know if I'll ever forget that moment. Oh, you know, there's that. The third is Light Lark by Alex Astor. While I did not like her book, specifically I did not like Isla because of her bloodthirsty tendencies, I did actually enjoy the descriptions of the plants throughout the book, and I thought that the author actually did a good job at creating interesting settings in that book. I also liked the setting with the mermaid creature thing that kind of tried to taunt her, but despite that, it still could have been done, you know, better. But I still liked the setting in this description, and I think Alex, if she gets some good critique partners and some good guidance on how to hone in on her descriptions, and her world building and just her story creation, she has a unique perspective. It just needs some polish. Number 4 was Tokyo Vice by Jake Adelstein. That was a nonfiction book about an American newspaper journalist who went up against the Yakuza in the 1990s/2000s a little bit. Some of my favorite sections of that book were actually when Jake Adelstein was talking about the history in Japan with the foreign population and also with the manuals, because I really enjoyed getting to know more about the culture and the relationship to others in that area. It also helped me understand more when I'm looking at other literature or entertainment like Yakuza set in Japan, and to see more of those relationships. And you also get a little more of that from another book that I read later this year. Number 5 was The Shards by Bret Easton Ellis. He's one of my favorite authors because of his description and his character work, though I do think The Shards could have been cut by like a decent chunk. I had to read it at 2 separate times, but I did get through it, and it was actually the last third of it, I would say, that made me really, really like it. But it did take like the first 150 pages to get to the statue description. That was very chilling. There was just, he got to school and there was this crime scene all over the statue, and that's one of the things that I do remember very specifically. And if you know Bret Easton Ellis, he describes the gore when you get to it. Now, it's not always up front. You always generally have to get through stuff to get to the creepy stuff, because he's not about grossing you out. He is about the mundane and writing these character things. And then when you come up to something, he goes full force. Like, I remember being in graduate school where one of my teachers was giving a talk about how to write sex scenes. And I remember Bret Easton Ellis being talked about, and Bret Easton Ellis is like, if you're going to write a sex scene, then freaking write everything about the sex scene. Don't romanticize it. And then you read Glamorama and you've got this most awkward 3-way sex scene possible. Freaking not a favorite moment in The Shards. But you do see a gay guy having sex with a woman who is his girlfriend at the time, and he's just not into it. And, Bret Easton Ellis writes a very good awkward sex scene where he just cannot. So if you want an example of that, The Shards has a lot of great character moments in it. The other favorite scene from The Shards that I had, other than when he got to the school and saw that statue and the way that it was actually the ending of the book, which took the rating of the book up for me because it was so well written and I was so into it. And it was just the fight scenes in the mansion with the knife, with the crazy stalker guy that had come in, with the cutting off of the breast, like the jumping off of the balcony. Just that whole sequence, the tension, the descriptions of the fight, the way that the book finished really improved my thoughts on the entirety of the book, and I was really glad that I finished reading it after I got to the ending. I was questioning it earlier on because of all of the other stuff that's going on in there, but the last third, once the mystery of what was happening to the main character really started to pick into the story, that was there. Also, something that I'll remember, I won't really call it a favorite scene, but it is something that I will remember from that book, was when the main character was getting into a relationship with an older man who had connections in Hollywood, because that was going to be his way to get into Hollywood, to get one of his books turned into a movie, something like that. And just the power disparity, the disconnection, the yuppie culture, as is typical in Bret Easton Ellis's books, was very palpable. Like, one thing that Bret always does so well is character relationships and just the distance that you feel between these characters because they don't care about each other. Everything is a business advancement and you are just a tool, and that's just part of that upper class culture, and it always comes through in the way that Bret writes. Number 6 was In the Absolutely True Diary by Sherman Alexie. That was one of the what I feel like was an actual YA book that was read this year through the ALA. And what I really liked in that book, I really enjoyed the voice. I thought that Sherman Alexie wrote that teenager's voice really well, and it felt really authentic, especially as something that was called a semi-autobiography, because if you look at the story and how the character was set up, and then Sherman Alexie himself, there are a lot of similarities, even in the medical background of that character's background. So I enjoyed how that book was written. I also especially enjoyed when Junior actually got off of the reservation and started going to the school, and then his classmates thought he was cool or were encouraging him, his teachers were encouraging him, the coach was encouraging him, and there was a section in there where Junior actually said that he felt like he could finally do something because other people believed in him that he could do something, and that there was this restrictive feeling or culture on the reservation where it was like, you're never going to escape. And that sort of became one of the themes of the story as it goes through, and he feels like he is betraying his family and betraying his background by wanting to leave the reservation, but he doesn't want to die on the reservation as a victim of the reservation. But you've also got the confliction with him there where his sister left the reservation and then she died not living on the reservation. But he doesn't want to just be another victim. And I thought it was really strong in the story to say, as people are believing in me and telling me that I can actually do something instead of just being a failure, instead of just being at the bottom of the barrel with everybody else, I actually feel like I can, and I'm finally succeeding because I try, and you're not going to encourage me to try if you tell me no matter what I do, I'm going to fail. So I really liked that moment. Number 7 is Tower of Dogs and Den of Sparrows by H.H. Miller. This was a 2 out of 3 books in a trilogy that is actually a dystopian YA sort of story. I read it here on the channel. If you're looking for a true YA story, I highly recommend it. It's kind of society building, kind of anime-ish, and the main character, Rome, well, there are 2 main characters. There's Rome and Sparrow, a brother and a sister, and they're both kind of finding their way in society where they belong, which is, you know, the YA story. And one of the favorite moments from that book that I had was actually in the second book, Den of Sparrows, when Rome goes into this cave with these monster creatures, and he has to use his powers of turning his skin into metal, and they attack him despite him just trying to find answers. His attempt to talk to them and also the setting are very well described, and then his hesitation in wanting to do anything, and also their hesitation in wanting to interact with him because they're distrusting of him because of who and what he is, just because they're different. I really liked that. I also really enjoyed the relationship that Sparrow had with Jenny, particularly in the second book. In the first book, she was obviously a servant girl to somebody who was developmentally challenged, but as Jenny became her own person, and Sparrow was starting to be able to separate from her, I enjoyed their dynamic and how their dynamic shifted, especially as Jenny became more independent, and Sparrow had to find her new place now that Jenny didn't need her. I also really liked the scene where Jenny went shopping for the dress. You got to see a little bit more of their differences and the things that Jenny wanted to be that she was not really supposed to be, or that she was unable to be, like trying to fit into a dress that didn't fit her because her body type was different. And there just felt like there were a lot of really strong character moments throughout H.H. Miller's story. So check that out. Number 7 is Supermarket by Bobby Hall. It was just a wild ride, but I think that I really actually enjoyed the beginning of it when he first went into the supermarket to get the job, because you got a character introduction to all these different people inside of the store, and it kind of felt a little bit like Clerks and Fight Club, where it's just this mundane thing, and then you've got all of these exaggerations. It's The Office, but also it's a supermarket. Frank with all of his banana facts. I'm not gonna lie, I think Frank going on about potassium was probably my favorite moment out of that book. Number 8 was Looking for Alaska by John Green. I think that I actually would have liked Looking for Alaska a lot more if not for the stripper thing, because that just felt like a trying to be edgy own, and also this Project Misogynist thing all the way at the ending as being Alaska's final thing was... But I did enjoy Alaska. I wish Alaska had been taken to like a 55 million of being super edgy girl of the aughts, because my favorite thing about that book was when she said, "You guys smoke for fun, but I smoke to die." And I wish there was more of that. Number 9 was People Who Eat Darkness by Richard Lloyd Perry, and this was about a man in Japan who was actually a Korean man who is also connected to the mafia or the Yakuza at the time, and his father had a lot of money, and his father also died when he was like 16 or 17, and he inherited all of his father's money, and this man had a tendency to go to hostess clubs and ask them on Dohan, and then drug them and then rape them at his house and then drop them off. And he videotaped all of it, and he eventually killed some girls, and some of them were foreign. He had a taste for foreign girls especially, and this started a hunt for him after he killed, I think, a second one. So this was a true crime book. And my favorite part about that book was learning more of the historical background, particularly between the Koreans and the Japanese, because I was also reading this book at the same time I was playing Yakuza 2, which is, ironically, almost all of the villains in that are Koreans that have a bone to pick with the Japanese because of the Korean mob being attacked like 30 years ago and trying to get revenge on the Yakuza that were in Tokyo that had done it. So it was interesting to see more of that background and more of that history, and I always like getting more background on different areas and more historical context for things that I don't necessarily know things about, because it gives a greater understanding, and so I really enjoyed that. The book was also a lot more like crime drama, where you had more stuff about the victims and more stuff from a journalistics perspective and more stuff from the courtroom than you really had about the killer. So if you're looking at it as a profile on the killer, you're not going to get it. You're going to get stuff about the search and the the police side and also the courtroom and the families. Number 10 was Body and Blood by Michael Gallagher. And one of my favorite scenes in that was actually when the dad saved the daughter from the demons. I also actually thought that the scene where the daughter was taken and put into the room with the demons after she kind of disappeared and was being threatened, and she picked up the Bible from the drawer and started praying was a very moving scene, especially to follow after that with the dad finding her and saving her and wanting to reunite with her. I also like the scene where Father Keegan was at the bar and he was talking to some of these under the table guys to get help and to get information on what exactly he was trying to solve in the city. Number 11 is From Mary Sue by George Alexopoulos, which is a comic book that I'm going to be doing a review with Monty for next week, so stay tuned for that. I really, really love the comic book. The pages, the art is so beautiful. I don't think George gets enough credit for just how incredible his art is, and also that book, as far as I know, was also entirely created by him, the story and the characters, and you're gonna hear me gush about it, when we do the book review, but the humor is fun. The characters are fun. It's got both soft and dramatic moments that really build the characters, really build the feelings, and I'm very thirsty for more of that book, though I have no idea when George is actually going to continue it. However, I would say my favorite moment from that book was when the Merman Prince was actually talking to Mary about the future of his planet. So Mary has to choose who the next ruler of their kingdom is going to be, and then the people that are not chosen are pretty much going to die, and he's going to become part of history, is how he describes it, and feed into this bigger thing. And he just has this sorrow and this acceptingness of what his life is meant to be and what he knew his life was always going to be if he did not become the next ruler, and that he is just part of history of his people, and that's just how things are. And there's like a sad acceptance to it and this heartfulness to it that is just, I think that story is really something special, and I don't know what else George has planned for it in the future, but I really hope that there is more. Number 12 was Saint Gregory by Charles Bowler. That's probably one of my favorite reads this year, along with Mary Sue. And two of my favorite scenes from that book was the ending in the cave, which I want to read for you. I mean, just because it's chilling. Like, the way that Charles utilizes the supernatural and religion in this, I really, really like. And I can't recommend it enough, specifically because it's so good at setting the scene. It's so good at setting the vibe. I really liked the way that he handled the small town secretiveness, the supernatural mixed into that, the secret keeping, the way that the priests are not welcomed when they come into the area, and the way that I just love Ambrose's character. He's a good man. He's a man that's trying to solve things to the best of his abilities, and he may not be following things exactly as they should be, but you see a man who is both strong in character, but also not infallible, and who also is young and falls for what breaks his spirit or what affects him. And also the relationship between him and Annalisa I thought was really sweet. Even from the moment that she came in, it felt like young love, and the way that it carried through felt like young love, and it was so sweet. So there are two scenes that I actually want to specifically mention, and one of them is the actual ending in chapter 36, where I'm not going to read you the whole ending area, but I want you to get this vibe of like the way that it introduces this villain, which I am so ready for the next book because I just really like this. So you got, "You are not Stefan," he said. The man looked like Stefan, but he was not. His eyes glowed with a light all their own, lit with the infernal fire, and his skin smoldered red as if burning. "The plans do not change it," it said. "The trap is set." "The plans?" "My plans," it said. "For my plans are different than yours." "What are you?" Anselm cried. Do you not know?" it said. "I am what you prayed for." Anselm recoiled, stepping back. "Are you afraid?" it said curiously. It rose and stood before him, letting its robes fall to the floor. Anselm could see the fire burning within, and he shuddered and shrank. "Look at me," it cried. "I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Oh, I got shivers the first time I read it, and I got shivers again. Just beautiful. And then the other thing that I really loved, the other scene, like there are a bunch of scenes in this that I love. When he was in the forest, it was great. I really loved the relationship between Killian and Tobias and Ambrose. because they all offered something different to the brotherhood between them and to the action sequences between all of them, and their relationships with each other mattered. And I also really like this ending scene where Ambrose goes to Annalise and says, "I didn't know where to find you. I thought maybe you were here. I mean, I hoped not, but I didn't know where else to look." "Where else would I be?" she scoffed. "There's no home in this town for a girl who lays down with a priest." "I'm sorry," he said. "I made my choice. Don't concern yourself with me. Anyway, did you do what you needed to do?" "Yes," he said. "I think I finally did." "Then where are your robes?" "I can't wear them anymore. I can't go back." "What are you talking about, Ambrose? What about your devotion and faith?" "There's nothing outside of this room that can save me. I cannot ask you to forgive me, but if I am not with you, I will wander this world forever lost." Annalise's eyes widened and her arms fell to her sides, hesitating. She turned, raven hair whirling, staring out the window into the night. Moments passed in heavy silence, the only movement, the soft rise and fall of her breath. Ambrose stared after her, his chest tight, aching, desperate for the right words to say. But he knew there were none. There was only bitter silence. "Where will we go?" she finally said. He reached out to her. Her skin was soft beneath his hand, and he held her close, his head buried against her neck. A wave of tiredness swept over him, such as he had never felt. "Wherever the line takes us," he whispered. Their relationship and the way it's presented throughout this, and the pull he feels of like what his duties are and what his vows are, and then what he finds in this girl and the ways that he feels like a failure really speak to me, and I really like them. And their romance is treated with so much respect and so much tenderness that I really think Charles did a great job with this book. It was a lot of the things that I like. Now, additionally, other than books, since I played video games, I also wanted to mention some of my favorite scenes from video games, though there were a lot, and sometimes it can be a little difficult to remember all of them since I do these over months at a time. They're just great. I mean, I will always remember the first Red Dead Redemption 2 stream where we're in the mountains because, one, I got mauled by dogs because I didn't know what I was doing, but then two, because, Dutch Vanderland says Annabelle, and I immediately sniped that name, and it immediately became the name of one of my characters in The Legend of Bill Cassidy, which will eventually be here. But some of the favorite things that I do remember from that otherwise are the two brothers fighting over the woman and having you punch them to prove which one of them is more manly than the other, also shooting, the bottle off their head, and especially as they move, and then being pushed off the waterfall, and then the brothers deciding that they're not going to fight over this girl anymore, she's not worth it, and the girl is like, what, I was just playing, what? You also had, oh my gosh. Another favorite moment. Priam being sent after that Black Widow chick that was hiding in a cave, and then my sneaking down the hill to get her, but then falling off, and then she was like, "Oh shoot," and she stabbed the guy that she was back really quick before running at me. Look, I was complete stealth mode, okay? I can't help that she is so perceptive that she saw me falling off the cliff. It just happens sometimes. It was also hard to pick a singular, now, aside from those, it was also hard to pick a singular moment for which was my favorite. I might come up with it later as I replay the game and kind of get to know stuff better. I do very much remember going out there with Charles for the buffalo as somebody was poaching the buffalo for no apparent reason, and Charles getting angry, and also us taking care of that guy, or was it Charles that killed him? I don't remember, but that guy for abusing the animals, because I love Charles as well. But it's really hard to pick one specific moment when what I really found touching was watching Arthur change over time from his level of violence is just what happens in this world and you have to get used to it. That's just the way things are, that he says all the way at the beginning, to where he is so much softer later in the story, and he doesn't really approve of the violence that is being done to innocent people, and he sees that especially through the loan collector, that he did violence upon innocent people in order to get money just for this greedy person. And then he's just thinking about all of the wrongs that he did in his life and regretting it, and regretting when he harmed innocent people. And it just, seeing that change in his character, it's chills in my spine. It's chills in my body. Disco Elysium was another game that I played this year, and it's also a game that I would say I am so happy and so grateful that I got to play that game. I think the team behind it, like this could be said about pretty much all of the games that I've played so far. It's not even funny how much talent is inside of so many different games when they have heart and they put their minds into it. But I'm really grateful that I got to play Disco Elysium. And one of my favorite things was actually the ending of Disco Elysium when Kim is proud of you and you recover your reputation. And it just makes it feel like the choices that you made throughout the story and the playthrough are actually rewarding. Like you can do the right thing and you can feel rewarded and you can feel grateful for the things that you've done and the choices that you've made. And it just, you get to the ending and you're like, that was worth it. That was really nice. And I'm glad that I could do that. I was like thirsty for another game by them after I finished that, because just the storytelling and the characters and the character designs and even the art that was so unique, it was fun. And then, you know, I learned that the people that worked on it are pretty much broken up, so I was like, gosh darn it. But I really liked that game, and I loved the obscure, completely different characters, the insanity behind it. Harry really grew on me as a person. But that ending, they did a really good job at making the ending feel worth it when you make certain choices. Especially if we pretend that when Kim got shot, it was all just a dream. You know. Going into Yakuza 2 and 3 and then Ishin, some of my favorite scenes from those are just the really ridiculous ones, like when the helicopters come in, the freaking highway speed chase with a helicopter coming in and the guy with the bazooka, or in Yakuza 2 when we were fighting the tigers. I'm looking forward to tiger fighting in Ishin. We're not there yet. I don't know if we're going to get there before the end of the year, but I'm looking forward to it because I just think if you give me either realistic or give me super over the top, like dramatic, where it is taken seriously, and I'm usually having a good time. And by that, I mean, I know what I like, okay? The bullfighting in Yakuza 3 was the best part about that. Our friend who was being scammed by that one chick from Yakuza 2, there's just... Oh, also in playing Yakuza 3, pretty much finding out everybody is Korean. That was, again, just made more ironic by what I was reading at the time. It was great. So that's just been so much fun, and I can't wait to play more of those games and to learn more, and I'm really looking forward to Ishin. It's so much fun, and the design is so fun. Freaking shooting cannonballs out of the sky for practice, like heck. Yes, also hitting them with the sword. It's just a good time. That's another set of games that I'm just like, I am grateful that you exist. The people who made this, thank you for sharing your greatness. I could say that about all of the games that I've played, though, again, because then you've got Faith of the Unholy Trinity, and I think the design on that game was so unique. I love the story behind it. I got so much more appreciation out of it by watching Wendigoon talk about the background on the game and the inspiration in the game and how the creator put some of his real-life stuff into the game. And the art design is so unique. I think Faith, the Unholy Trinity is also a work of art. Like, I think all of the video games that I've played this year have been a work of art from such distinct people. I think Faith, the Unholy Trinity is a real special work, especially with the different ways that you can get different endings, the different stories that you can find in there. The scenes that I liked the most from Faith, the Unholy Trinity were, one, going into the daycare, which I absolutely knew I was going to die if I walked out the front door, and I got, because all the police were out the front, and I still walked out the front. My bad. And the hospital, the way that the hospital was designed when you went downtown, and then, you know, you found that creature walking around and got tied to the gurney and went down the stairs. Super creepy. Just the style of that was done so well to be both retro and very creepy, and it was good. Finally, the last game that we've played this year has been Dishonored, and some of my favorite scenes or missions from this game included the Whale Butcher, which is part of the DLC. I never saw it before because I didn't play the DLC before, but I really like that setting, and I really like the design of that setting. The Masquerade Party has also been one of my favorites, especially with, like, creeping up on people and stealing from them, and then they tell you to stop, but they just don't care. That's hilarious. Also, my sneaking technique is top tier, okay? I know that it is. You can't tell me otherwise. And also the brothel, because usually stuff that happens within a brothel and just being in these settings where you have to be quiet generally and sneak around and kind of see what people do when they think nobody is watching is a great way to introduce both stealth mechanics and things that you wouldn't learn in other places. With that said, all of the games that I've played this year, which have been, you know, Red Dead, Disco Elysium, Yakuza, Faith, the Unholy Trinity, and Dishonored, have all felt like works of art. Yakuza 3 was rough, I'll be honest on that one. It's the game controls of freaking 2009 that have been the hardest for that. But they've been such enjoyable experiences and extra enjoyable to share. And then a lot of the books that I read this year also brought their own unique spin to things, and I'm very grateful for the different directions. Like, even though the Loin stream can be full of hit or miss books, and I know you guys like to miss because it's fun, they've still all been unique, and that's been one of my favorite things about the Loin stream in general, is there's such a variety of books that arrive to that place that we all get to experience together and make memories of together. And I still remember a lot of the books that I read last year and the year before that when the Loin stream actually started. And I just feel really grateful. Even if I don't like every book that I read, I do like that I'm experiencing completely different authors and completely new ideas and completely different takes. And then eventually, hopefully, as I do book reviews on them, I can bring them to you to also experience them, whether it is getting you to read them or just seeing the video. So I'm so excited to continue to do that in the next year, to find new favorite reads, because I've already got some stuff piled up to read. I'm working on them now. Working on some of them now. And I look forward to sharing new and exciting things with you. I also hope that you guys find some new things and maybe can recommend me some of them once I catch up on some of the stuff that I have to read right now in front of me. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what some of your favorite story moments were this year, whether it's in books that you read, television shows, movies, video games, anywhere that you experience a story. Let me know what some of yours were and where they were from down in the comments below. Not like I'm trying to get reading lists from you guys. That would be insane. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?